Hello everybody, sorry about the wait, having a little bit of technical difficulties, however, we are basically ready to go here. So, rules for the tournament are fairly simple. I believe this match is a best out of 5. Each team is going to have an opportunity to pick, so the person hosting the map is going to be able to pick first. So they will pick first, and the other team will pick both of their factions at the same time, and then they will pick again. So the factions we have on display today are 2 Angband armies, which probably means we're looking at some rush armies here, which isn't something you see every day in a tournament. We've also got the House of Fingolfin and the Guarded Realm of Doriath, both of which are the favored factions of the 2 players who will be controlling them today. So Captain Gervais does tend towards Doriath, and Demetrius Stratus is a big fan of the House of Fingolfin. That being said, Angband is a pretty good match for both of these. There's some give and take in either way. Both Doriath and the House of Fingolfin are good at dealing with elephants, and Doriath is pretty good at handling armor. That being said, the Realm of Angband has a ton of resources that they can call upon. They give them a lot of versatility. They don't have to take elephants. They can just go full mid-tier and heavy infantry, and it can be a really big problem for them. So we're going to go ahead and get this started here. I will mention that there is some prize money that will be on the table, and that is going to be to the tune of $150, 100 of which is being provided by members of our development team, and the remaining 50 is being provided by myself. Let me just jump into chat here. You can answer any questions that anybody may have regarding the tournament or regarding the mod, and hopefully get things underway pretty shortly. I think both teams are just about ready here. We're just waiting on the Fear team, Alasan and Safi, to ready up. They're actually both clanmates, so this is going to be a bit of an honor duel, I suppose. The clan reputation on the line today, in addition to the $150. So hopefully we can get this started pretty quickly here. But this should be a pretty scary engagement for both sides. I mean, Doriath has that chaff grinding power. All those axe units, the axe guard, are fantastic at dealing with some of the regular iron shod units. And Doriath, of course, has answers to a lot of the strengths of Angband, that being their large monsters and their halberd units in the form of the Tir-En Laisadan. And I expect that we'll see them on the field today. My team was knocked out by the Doriath Fingolfin team in the semifinals, and they definitely leaned heavily into the Tir-En Laisadan and the double bodyguard, so I think we're going to see a lot of that here today. Surprised we didn't see the Haladin. They definitely used the Haladin to great effect against us, and they are a really, really good faction for dealing with Angband as well. But I think for the first round, they want to maybe go with their comfort zone. Yeah, so we'll see how that works out for them. In addition, the map that we're playing on, this sort of desert terrain, is actually quite propitious for Orcish armies, as Angband in particular is going to get bonuses for all of their infantry to the tune of +2 for all of their attack, in addition to any upgrades that they bring with them. So this is going to be a tough fight for the House of Fingolfin and the Guarded Realm of Doriath. It's really, I think, going to come down to maneuvering in some early skirmish and trying to wear down the Angband forces, because I think in terms of brute strength, Angband definitely has the advantage here, both in terms of terrain and in terms of how that kind of plays into what Angband is really good at. So we're going to take our unit here, we're going to pop them back over here into our little radio tower, and we're going to watch everything as it goes down. Now, hopefully none of the tournament players, I did see a few of them in chat, hopefully none of them are still in chat, so that I can freely go over some of the compositions here. Let's go ahead, get things started on our end. If we're looking at the Angband Army here, this one being commanded by, actually I can't see the player name here, but let's go over the composition nonetheless. We have some Troll Guard of Gothmog, a particularly good unit in the upcoming patches. They do have an armor upgrade, which will make them a little bit more stable. They're going to be backing up some of the Urulogi. Ooh, they just popped across to who knows where. There we are. The fire-breathing drakes of Morgoth. Very, very good at dealing with light and medium armored infantry. And in particular, the pikes of Fingolfin are going to want to be afraid of the Urulogi. In addition to, they've got what appears to be a ton of mid-tier units here. So some Reavers of Angband, another unit that does get a bunch of strong terrain bonuses. It's actually the only medium infantry pick that Angband can call upon, with most of their roster being, as you've probably noticed, very, very heavily armored. So I'm looking at maybe about 3 units of them here, and we're going to have 3 units of halberds out front. Now, these halberds do not have their armor upgrade. This is a composition that I've seen quite a lot in tournaments, and it really does focus on just bringing overwhelming numbers at the cost of the little quality tweaks that you can give to Angband here and there. 2 units of those Troll Guard. Not seeing any of the Balrogs on the field today. No, indeed. We have the older model here for the Valaraukar. There's a new one that will be coming in the patch that will hopefully be out by, well, I won't give you a date, but hopefully very soon. We also have the Legendary Company here for the Realm of Angband. These are the Scourges of Gothmog. Now, these 2 units together are a real scary 1-2 punch. Now, if you guys are not familiar with our Legendary Company system, just think sort of the Regiments of Renown from Warhammer, but a little bit more specialized and brought in line with the overall design philosophy of Silmarillion Total War. There are a lot of trade-offs to go with the strengths of these particular units. They are all generally capped at 1 and extremely expensive after that. This unit in particular is a lighter version of a mace-wielding unit called the Tormentors of the Iron Crown. They have very high melee defense and some really good charge bonus and damage values, but they don't have a shield and they don't have the greatest armor, especially in terms of the sort of average armor of the rest of the Angband roster. So potentially extremely vulnerable to missiles, very easy to shut down if you're not careful with them, but if you use them well, they can be extremely powerful flankers. They're quite quick in addition to, and yeah, they can be one of the few places along a sort of general engagement on a battle line where Angband can really be supreme using only their orc units. Out in front, a ton of crossbows here. Beautiful, beautiful crossbows. Many of the Iron Shot Arbalists going to be used to great effect against, I believe this would be Doriath. So Doriath doesn't really have the greatest armor or shield values, but there are a few units that these can be particularly deadly against. The Bodyguards, the Tielen Leisdanen, and some of the mainline sword and shield units, which now have armor upgrades in this patch. In behind, we've got some of the Tormentors. This is the more heavily armored variant of the Scourges of Gothmog. They have maces, and therefore they have AP, and they have a lot of tankiness behind them, but they do not have nearly the amount of speed or damage that the Scourges of Gothmog have. I think that's more or less it. Nope, we do have some Ravagers in the back here, 2-handed Axemen. Really nice anti-cavalry deterrents. Fingolfin doesn't really specialize in their cavalry, but they do have some nice utility picks in the form of their own Legendary Company, which is an armor-piercing horse archer, but they also have some really strong light, or rather medium lancers that can do a number on orcish units very, very quickly. We've got some Wretches of Angband here to sort of round off the force, and then behind we've got some Thralls. The big draw of the Thralls is that there's lots of them. They have a little bit higher than average ammunition, so they can just be a pain for a long time. Over here, I'm thinking we've got very similar armies. So we've got the Wretches, we've got the standard sort of loadout here of Reavers plus unupgraded Halberds, more Ravagers in the back, some Troll Guard, Uraloki Balrog, looking like these are mirror comps. The idea here basically is just flood the field with as many orcs as you can, use these very strong elephants and utility units to great effect to create local superiority and smash the enemy lines apart, because they can't fight those sort of wars of attrition the way that Angband can. If we're looking at this is probably about, I would guess near 8,000 orcs on the field, so that's going to be pretty tough for Fingolfin to deal with in particular, since they don't really have a ton of armor piercing. They do have units that specialize in their skill, but they also do rely in this particular matchup pretty heavily on their pike units, which don't do the greatest damage quickly. They will do a lot of damage over time, and they're great at keeping enemy units at bay, especially pinning elite units in particular in place, or dealing with any elephants that are foolish enough to come close to them. But when it comes to chunking through thousands upon thousands of armored orcs, it's not really going to be in Fingolfin's favor, so we'll see how they manage to kind of work around that. First time catching the stream, so sorry if I'm missing something. Oh, no worries. Thanks for dropping by, bud. Let's see if we have any questions here regarding the matchup or regarding the mod. Nope. Nothing so far. So we're just going to wait here very patiently. There's a pact or something that I'm not aware of. But we're going to wait here very patiently for the other side to finish their deployment. They're going to want to be very careful about how they go about this engagement. As I mentioned, a lot of these Angband units, the orcs especially, get bonuses when fighting in the desert, so they're going to be extra deadly, and there's a especially large amount of them today. So unless they can do something to deny the rush, now there is, running through this map, there's these little darker areas, and these will slow down enemies that come through them, and they have very wisely deployed on the opposite side of them to try and give themselves a little bit of extra breathing room. But let's take a look at what the Doriath player has brought. I'm pretty sure I know the comp, as I have definitely faced them a few times in the field. We got some marksmen here. These are Silverthorn arrow units. If you guys are a little bit unfamiliar with the mod and the mechanics, Silverthorn arrows are really nice for dealing with rushes. They can pin units in place, super disruptive, not a lot of ammunition, but okay damage to boot. But it really comes down to the high mass that makes this a worthwhile pick against Angband, especially an Angband rush army. I have a little bit of melee cavalry here. It's never a bad thing to have some cavalry in your pocket. The Doriath cavalry are no slouches in CQB. Over here we've got some axe throwers, going to be nice for dealing with the reavers and the unupgraded halberds. Spearmen, two-handed axemen, who are very useful in this matchup for their anti-elephant capabilities as well as their anti-armor. I've got a whole bunch of swordsmen arrayed here in a sort of almost triplex Achilles formation. I think the idea will be to make things tar pit on the axes and on the swordsmen, and then maybe get off a nice cheeky charge with those two-handed axemen. Also got double bodyguard here from the looks of things. We've got the Donath and Mablung, and of course we have the Tir and Lys Danen Legendary Company. They are a little bit different from this unit over here, that being the Axe Guard, in that they do less damage, they have generally less stats overall, they can't upgrade their armor, and they actually take penalties when fighting in the desert, so this is not a great place for them to be in CQB. However, they do have these nifty armor-piercing throwing axes, which are super disruptive, but are also deadly to armored units, and especially to low model count single or small entities, such as the Balrogs, and such as the Uruloki. Let's see what else he's brought here. He's got some detachments of the Spearhost of the Girdle. These are particularly nice in that I think... No, actually that's on the test patch, but they will be becoming a new type of Javelin. But for now, they're just a half-strength unit of the regular Spearhost of the Girdle, and they have a nice little no-armor-piercing Javelin that they can use in close quarters. Looks like the Doriath player is going to try and link up with his ally, because of course, and the Angband player is going to do the same. So it's going to be Safi over there on the Angband left wing, and forming the center and the right is going to be Alasan. Let's see what else Rex has brought. I think we've basically covered the long and short of it. He's got marksmen, he's got some Spearhost of the Girdle, he's got the axe throwers, and he's got some strong frontline infantry that are going to be useful for grinding down those Angband numbers, especially the one-handed axemen. Over here, moving on to the Fingolfin army, we've got the Sons of Húrin, I would argue, almost necessary choice to take in this matchup, as they just hit so hard. They're anti-armor, and they also do significant damage to elephants. And the same can be said for these handsome fellows over here. These are the Herdsmen of Ithlam, getting a little bit dirty as that dust and dirt swirls around them. They are mostly focused on being shock infantry, but they do have a little bit of extra utility in the form of a bow that they can use to soften up their enemies before engaging. They're also two-handed axes, so some more anti-armor there, because, of course, that's exactly what you want to bring against Angband. We've got some Javies here, another good anti-armored tool. These are the Marines of Vinyamar. Not super great in close quarters, but they're all right. Medium infantry reserves, not something you really want to put on your front line, though. The front line here, composed of some pikemen. These are the... I can't remember their name. Oh, it's terrible. I think it's the Sentries of Hithlum, and they are the pike unit that I mentioned. They're going to be really nice for outranging halberds and giving the rest of the Fingolfin infantry time to basically grind down Angband. Because when it comes to elf versus orc matchups, it's really... Obviously, it's a game of attrition, but if the elves can hold on as the orcs get really tired, that's generally where the elves tend to really shine in those kinds of long, grindy fights, because they have far better fatigue traits than the orcs do. So that's when mass routes can start to happen once the orc armies begin to sort of lose momentum and are not able to exert the amount of pressure that they normally are at the beginning of the game. That's where the elves can really start to shine. Let's see what else he's got here. Second unit of the Javelins. I'm not seeing any additional cavalry here, which is a little bit surprising to me. I would have expected to see the Arquini Findicano, the legendary company, since they can be so powerful at softening up and singling out single entities or low model count units like the Udurloki and like the Balrog. That being said, Fingolfin did bring a lot of options for doing something similar when in CQB. The second line is going to be composed of the Bladesmen of Barad Eithel, and just in front of them is going to be some Marksmen of Barad Eithel. So these are just the sort of generic high-tier roster for Fingolfin, including some high-tier bows and some high-tier swordsmen, who particularly specialize in their melee defense, which is a really, really nice thing to have against some of the lower damage and just generally lower statistic overall orc units. They can really grind it out, but the big danger is going to come from the line-breaking units, like the Trolls, the Udurloki, and Balrogs. So they are forming up in this nice big layered defense, going for a sort of defense in-depth approach, but since they've lined up behind each other, and the Angband Army really does have the numbers, it's going to be pretty easy for them to try to envelop them on both sides, go for that double envelopment, and that's really what they're sort of placed here to do. They've got their Troll Guard, they've got their armor-piercing shock units out on the wings, really standard Angband sort of loadout, where you've got all this chaff units in the center, the halberds, etc., and they're just there to sort of hold the line, just keep things busy, so that you can smash them on the wings with all of your big, scary monsters and your legendary companies and so forth. So Scourge's Gothmog deployed out here. It's where the general is going to be, which is a little bit more of a risky pick than putting them into the Bulldogs, but I don't think there's actually any Bulldogs in this army, which is different, and that's going to play into what I spoke of earlier, where as the Orcish units get tired and get fatigued, those morale penalties start to accrue, and that's when mass routes can happen once they start to lose in combat. So that is going to, I think, be the only way out of this for the Elven players. But I suppose we'll see. That's a lot of Udurloki and Balrogs forming up more or less in their center here. That's going to be a lot to deal with as well, because they have so many monsters and there's two Angband players in the field. They're actually going to be able to exert a significant amount of pressure, which is a little bit atypical. Normally you've just got this sort of trash front line, you're just going to tie things down and then go for the win on your wings, but now they've got the ability to exert pressure in 3 different places at once. There's a lot of fear in here. This could be a total blowout. This could very, very easily go south for the elves in a pretty significant way. So we'll see what happens here once they get underway. Looks like some movement on the part of the Doriath player, who is maybe pulling out a little bit from behind his ally and jockeying for position over here. Not a bad idea, because it does put the cliff on his side, and that is going to basically nullify the ability of all of those nasty things over here on the Angband right wing to wrap around his own flank, and just going to funnel them straight in to the jaws of a lot of those Doriath infantry, which it'll still be bloody because there's some nasty stuff here, but it is certainly going to serve them better. So an excellent use of terrain here by the Doriath player, but they of course don't want to get too close. Again, they want to have a little bit of skirmishing here. If they can tire out the Angband forces, make them run around, make them chase like skirmishers and things like that, that is ultimately going to play in to a win in the long term. I think that's probably the only viable strategy here. So yeah, I'd be very careful about my spacing. It looks like the Angband player sort of isn't interested in taking that fight, which I can understand why not, but he is going to give that space up to the Elven players. Now, maybe they want to induce the Elven players to come forward, or maybe they just aren't feeling as confident as potentially I think that they should be, given the army compositions and the way that the matchups are going to stack up. There is a hill here, so it might be that they want to take some advantage of that. We'll see. If it really does come down to it, it would be a shame that the Doriath player or the Fingolfin player doesn't have any artillery here, as artillery has been greatly improved over previous matches. When people are sitting up on hills like this, it's pretty easy, especially when they're all layered up the way that Angband is, to just pound them into the dirt with concentrated cannonball fire. Go after the important stuff, generals, bodyguards, monsters, etc., whittle those things down, and then move in for the kill. Now, I should probably move myself as close to the red line as I possibly can get. because I don't want to interfere in any way with the storm that may come hurtling through this little corridor. So we're going to move off and try and keep our distance. Let's take a look at our chat here. Let's see what everyone thinks about the odds for the Elven players in this particular game. Nothing so far. Haven't been streaming for too long there, Lord of the Golden Flower. Probably only 15-20 minutes, I would expect. Something like that. The Fingolfin player moving forward as well, and the Angband player, Safi, is going to move up here. Wretch is getting a little bit tired, but that's to be expected because see that the fatigue here is starting to hit these units, so they're already warmed up. And if a good engagement can be taken by the elves while these orcish units are a little bit flat-footed and a little bit tired out, then, like I said, that's really only going to play into the elves' hands in the long run. That being said, you do not want to overextend against this particular Angband army. They've just got the numbers to just flood the field, so a huge, very dangerous flanking force being brought to bear here, sort of threatening the elven right flank. And in the meanwhile, there's a big old phalanx here, armed with crossbows, armed with enough chaff to keep those elves busy for years. And then, of course, there's more and more orcs all across the field here. So I think what Doriath player has done here, this is probably one of the better places that they could deploy. Ooh, a little bit of lag here. Because of the way that this terrain does sort of shield them from Alison's flanking units. So pardon me, I personally wouldn't go too much farther than this, and I would try to induce the other players to, or the other team rather, to come to me, because the more that he moves away from this, the more that he is exposed to superior numbers and this just absolutely ungodly hammer that the Angband player is keeping in their back pocket. And the possibility for an envelopment is really, really strong here. I think that the Angband player, they're just getting themselves into position. I think that they want to rush them down, because of course they do. They don't really have the tools here to fight an extended skirmish fight, but they want to rush them down. They want to get in there as soon as possible. And I think once that they've sort of gotten the positioning that they're satisfied with, we could probably see them charge down off of that hill and into the elven lines. Now they've come far enough forward that they're actually, the Fingolfin player in any case, is inside of this little darker area that does kind of slow people down. So you can see just how slow these units are, even when running through this particular area, and that is going to make it very difficult for an infantry-based army to respond to certain threats. So luckily the Fingolfin player, being nice and proactive, kind of sees the danger there, and he's got a lot of the tools I think that he's going to need to deal with it. Also two-handed axes over here as well from Doriath, who's sent a fairly strong contingent in addition to their cavalry, which is really the only place I would argue that their cavalry can be effective. It's got to be out in here because of the way that they're positioned over next to this cliff face, and there's not really a lot of great places, open areas for that cavalry to get used. There's a big old gap in the line here. That could be a big problem. If the elves manage to get in here, drive a wedge between these two Angband forces, that could play into their hands, but it could also go horribly wrong because of all of the Urloki up here, who are basically just artillery pieces that are very good at picking off heavy, medium, and unshielded infantry. And in particular, the Doriath warriors, the two-handed axemen, should really fear these guys and should be careful about how they deploy them, lest they be blobbed up and incinerated en masse. Now, Safi moving to fill in this particular gap in the line. A little bit of lag here. This is quite a large-scale battle, so hopefully that doesn't continue throughout the rest of the game. It looks like it's the Fingolfin player who's having a little bit of trouble with the scale of this particular matchup. Those are some fantastic trees. Yes, we actually took the new vegetation from the Europa Barbarorum 2 mod, so their team deserves all the credit for their excellent work. And they also don't really have any performance-related drawbacks, so there's really no reason not to use them. If you guys like ancient history and like ancient Greece and Rome and that sort of like heroic golden age, then it's definitely a mod that I recommend you guys can check out. But that's neither here nor there. Hill campers, he says. Well, I like to think that they're just getting themselves into a position where they're comfortable and ready to rush them down, because that is exactly what these armies are built to do. And we actually, myself and my teammate, before we got knocked out of the tournament, we actually played against almost identical Angband compositions to this one. But we were able to like funnel them and just like not allow them to kind of rush and bring to bear all of their strength at the same time. We were playing like Gondolin and Assyrian, so there was a lot of indirect sort of guerrilla warfare that went on there. And we managed to tire them out, and eventually, yeah, we managed to pull out a win. So if these kind of armies sit back and just get picked apart and kind of have their strength bled dry over the course of a long sort of attrition game, then that is actually an instance where Angband can actually kind of win those battles of attrition, that sort of trench warfare, because yeah, the elves just end up outmaneuvering you, and they have the quality and they have the fatigue to see them through to victory in the late game. So there's a lot of maneuvering here. Definitely want to be careful with how that with how they do that, because it's a lot of like moving back and forth and not like moving forward, not taking any ground, not doing anything sort of tactically or strategically significant. And this is a great way to tire out your troops and basically end up in the situation where the previous team that we faced doing double Angband found themselves in. So not something that you don't want to just like move units willy-nilly when you're playing as Angband, and just generally with non-elven factions you don't have as much room for maneuver, so you need to have a solid plan going in. This wing over here under Safi, got some winded units, but those are mostly just wretches and they don't have fatigue anyway. But yeah, a lot of things here are warmed up. Yeah, you wanna be decisive and very deadly when you're playing with Angband. But looking over here, this is a really nice long kind of front, and with the cavalry and the archers over here, they are kind of decently well positioned to potentially outflank this flanking force. So gotta be careful, gonna have to be very, very like on point when it comes to the timing when the Angband armies smash in here. If they hit all points of the line all at once, with the Balrogs and the Urloki pressuring the center and all of these nasty things on the side, I think that the elves would be in serious trouble. I'm not entirely convinced that that's a fight that they can really win. Oh, looks like we do have some Arcwendi Findecondo on the field here. Don't know how I missed them. Armor-piercing unit, pretty heavy on the melee defense, but they don't have a ton of armor. You can upgrade their armor, but it is expensive to the tune of 100, so it's almost 50% more expensive than your average armor upgrade. And they are going to want to pick on things like the Balrogs if they can, and there's not a lot. In fact, I don't think that there are any skirmishing units over here that can really stop them, so they kind of can just do whatever they want with their mobility and with that range. And you can see that the Angband player here, Safi, recognizes the threat that they pose to his Balrog, so he's going to start to pull them back. But I think that this, even if they don't go for the Balrogs, they could very easily go for the Scourges of Gothmog, for example. And while it would be a little bit of a waste to use armor-piercing ammunition on them, this is still very much a linchpin unit and accounts for a significant portion of the killing power in this flanking army. So there's a few options here for the Arcwendi Findecondo, though it looks like the Fingolfin player is going to draw them back for now and wait for some more opportunities. But I personally don't know why. Oh, there are some thralls here. That would be why. Didn't see them. Pretty decent counter to the Arcwendi Findecondo. I think the Arcwendi Findecondo outranged them very, very slightly, or they might just be the exact same range. I think they're both 160. So we'll have to be careful with how he uses them, as those thralls could potentially cut through that lighter armor really, really easily with that sheer volume of fire. So the Angband wretches here already tired without having struck a single blow. That's alright. It does mean that they will run a little bit earlier, which can spook some of your other troops here, especially the Ironshot Ravagers tend to have a really high attrition rate, so it is easier to make them run than, say, some sturdier units like the Reavers of Anfauglith, for example. Even they, with their medium armor and shields, do take damage less quickly than the Ravagers, so something to bear in mind. Arbalists out front, screening the army. That's a bit of a stalemate here. This is pretty typical, I think, for tournament matches, especially it seems on the tournament patch, where like one or two false missteps can really, really punish you badly, and especially as Angband, who don't have the greatest morale. Their morale is like middling, but their response to morale shocks is very poor. So if they misstep and overextend with a wing, and that wing gets obliterated, then their center is then extremely isolated. So I can understand the need for caution here a little bit. So we've got the Arquini Findicano making moves in behind the Angband Army. I think they're concerned that they might try and get behind and go for the Uruloki. I think that would be a great pick. The Arquini Findicano could probably kill off, you know, an entire unit of Uruloki, or maybe like severely maim them and kill half of them, which is only going to be a great thing for the Elven players. Looks like Fingolfin moving forward, making some moves here. Now the combined front line is pretty typical, but the Pikes are actually a little bit too far forward, so they're not really going to get the benefit of having the Bladesmen of Barad Ithel in this formation with them. So it's, you know, you're sacrificing, like you're blobbing up basically to try and get a defensive boost, but you're not actually getting the defensive boost. So that's a little bit of an issue there. Definitely want to be careful about how you do that. Herdsmen of Dorloman, some low-tier spearmen hanging out front, being joined by the Herdsmen, the more elite upper sort of mid-tier pick. And they're going to press forward and maybe put a little bit of pressure here on this Angband line. They probably want to go for the Ravagers. I would definitely go for the Ravagers. But the Thralls will be able to make them pay for it pretty mightily, since the Herdsmen only really have medium armor. So Thralls letting loose here. Not sure what they're going after. Going after the Mounted Company. Not the worst idea. The lower end archers do have a little bit of added utility in that their arrows can sometimes hit mounted units multiple times. That being said, the shield and the 8 or so, or maybe it's actually 9 armor of the Mounted Company are going to stand them in excellent stead here, while those Thralls waste ammunition and waste some time trying to fight them. Now, it looks like that Fingolfin wing has kind of stopped what they were doing. They do have a slight hill, so I think they will be able to get a ton of value from those volleys here. Just firing into basically anything, you're guaranteed to hit something relatively important, such as the Ravagers here. I think maybe the Thralls might be mixed in there as well. These Balrogs now pulling back. Let's see where the Arquini Findicano are. Yeah, they're hanging out here behind the lines, just waiting for an opportunity to be used. Now they're on the move. Maybe Dimitri Stratus sees an opportunity. He's really got his pick of the leader here about what he wants to shoot at. The Iron Shot Arbalists are outranged by the Findicano, so he could very easily come forward and, you know, grab some of the Uruloki, maybe shave off some HP from them, or the Valaraukar. Or go for a cheeky rear charge, potentially. Now, the Arquini Findicano don't have the greatest damage, but charging from behind against 6 armor Arbalists and things like that, that could be pretty useful. But I don't think we're going to see that. That would be very, very bold and aggressive, and you'd have to have a perfect opportunity to do that, and I don't think he's really got that. Now, I'm not sure what this arrow means. It may be that they want to pull back a little bit. But I don't think so. They're probably just, yeah, denoting where the Arquini Findicano are. Thralls of Angband, just kind of haphazardly strewn about here. Yeah, loose formation unit pathfinding can be a little bit screwy in medieval too. But those wretches are quite far forward. Marksmen still well positioned. Mounted Company are here. Some wares of Region have now joined them. Yeah, this could be interesting. Like, if they were to launch a very serious attack on the wing here, try and destroy that, but still having enough units in the center, they'd basically be using Angband's own sort of strategy against them. Pressuring the wings, trying to win there, and then, you know, either having units tying down their center, or having enough troops there that you can just menace them with the possibility of tying down their center. It looks like the Fingolfin players finally move forward with those Bladesmen of Barad Ithel. So now these pikemen are going to be reasonably well protected against any projectiles that come their way. And of course, while all of that is going on, there is still a big old Doriath army over here to contend with. Now, if I was a Doriath player, I would still be a little bit concerned here, and it looks like Alissan maybe wants to sort of take back the initiative a little bit and start to push forward and be a little bit more aggressive. So we can see some of the Troll Guard moving forward here. Scourge is being kept very wisely in the rear, but Troll Guard plus Ravagers plus, you know, Thralls firing into a blob, you know, that would, you know, be pretty decent. There's a lot of things here, such as these warriors or these lighter infantry and these spearmen in the back that would be pretty easy prey for the Thralls, and they make a significant portion of the troops that are here. And things like the swordsmen, etc., they could be quite easily smashed apart by the Troll Guard. Because while the Troll Guard are not AP, their damage is high enough that it really doesn't make all that much. Never mind. Wretch is here to soak up attacks. Yeah. I think the Angband players here really need to be careful about being driven onto the back foot. Like I was saying earlier, there needs to be some sort of decisive action here, and there needs to be like a big plan. Now, Doriath is now repositioning their entire army, so this might be a good opportunity to kind of move forward, be a bit aggressive, maybe use some of the Arbalists, because Doriath doesn't have amazing missile units, and there's a lot of pretty easy targets here, so they could get some shots off with the Axe Guard, the Sword Host, sort of thin out this front line here, make it easier for the Troll Guard and for all of their flanking units to eventually smash through. But I think that, yeah, some aggression here definitely needs to be brought forward by the Angband players. They have a lot of things in their corner on this map, the hill being one of them, so for the Arbalists that'll be extra nice for them because they can just come down to like this area here and then get a little bit of an extra range bonus and then retreat before Doriath can really do anything about it. But they also have the desert bonus going for their heavy infantry. So yeah, a little bit of aggression here is probably needed. Looks like, yeah, maybe the Angband player recognizes that too, because they don't want to lose the initiative, right? You don't want to be driven onto the back foot with an aggressive army that's all about pushing forward and smashing up your enemies. And now that the Doriath players repositioned, they have actually opened a big old hole here on their left wing. So that's something that potentially the Angband player is going to be able to exploit, and it looks like Alisson recognizes that as well. He's going to begin to move forward here and maybe flood through this gap and just smash into the flank here. If he can do that, like if he can get his phalanxes forward and engaging these sword units and then come in from the side with those Troll Guard, that's basically game over for this side of the Doriath army. They might be able to contain it if they act quickly. Tyrion Lyston in particular would be really useful for doing that sort of thing, but yeah, that would go a long way to putting some serious hurt on the chances for the the red team here to pull out a victory. Yep, I absolutely agree there, Waffles. The positive thing for them is that they have better factions in Fingolfin and Doriath in terms of quality, absolutely. While Angband has their numbers and their quick killing power. And the other thing to note with Angband, in case somebody out there is just joining us for the first time, is that the Angband army is mostly orcs, and orcs are going to get bonuses in the desert. So they're going to get the equivalent of an extra attack upgrade, basically. So off the charge, Angband is going to be super devastating. And like Waffle said, they're going to do a lot of quick damage, and that's what they're really going to rely on. Like if they can break, because there's so many of the sort of mid-tier light infantry units here, there is a possibility for some breaking, and that will potentially spook the higher end units and just cause a bit of a mass rout. So if they hit them at the right time with the right units, then yeah, this could be very dangerous for Doriath, exposing their sort of soft underbelly, as it were, the way that they are here on this left wing. Now, taking a look over here, they're slowly inching forward. Herdsman of Dorloman out front, backed up some Herdsmen of Ithlam, who looks like they've used all of their ammunition. Now, they're getting shot back by the Thralls. I personally wouldn't leave them there to get shot, because that's just, it's free real estate, basically, for the Thralls. Like, there's no danger to them anymore, and the Herdsmen of Ithlam are actually an important part of the troops that they've arrayed over here. So I would consider drawing them back, and then maybe even bring forward the Marines of Vinyamar, because even if you can deplete javelin units, like, they don't lose their ammunition. So as long as they're not down to, like, you know, less than half strength, they're still quite deadly. And these guys have a pretty decent shield value, I think, of about 6 or 7. So they'll be able to stand up to the Thrall damage of 3 very well. So I wouldn't leave the Herdsmen of Ithlam out here. I really think that that's a bit of a waste, and that's something that every model lost is going to cost them in the longer run, because there's a lot of, like, big armored units here, like the Trolls. Scourges of Gothmog, a charge from the Herdsmen, can do really well against them. And the Balrogs and the Urloki as well, because they do get bonuses against them. Oh, some aggression here. Oh, I think that would have been a serious misstep. Arbalists trying to pop off a volley there, but that slow crossbow reloading time is very much against them. And the Balrogs are going to be brought forward to zone these guys out. That being said, melee cavalry don't do terrible against elephant units. So if they could isolate the Balrogs, they could probably do a decent amount of damage to them. But I don't think it would be worth sacrificing one of their few mobility units to achieve a few HP losses on the Balrogs. I think maybe they could be working in tandem with the Arqueni Findicano, and I have no idea where they've gone. Over here, behind Alisson's army now. And there's, ooh, making waves over here. Oh, Safi's lagging just a little bit. Angband's got some Spear Guard, right? I don't think I saw any Spear Guard. I saw Tormentors, but I don't think that they have any Spear Guard. I think this is the Spear units that they do have are mostly Wretches, so they won't be getting the Inspire from the Spear Guard. Spear Guard, really all that they're going to get is from the Valoralkar, and that's in a much smaller area. About a fifth of the area, if I recall, of the Bulldogs. Scourge is a Gothmog here. Maybe a few of them got taken down. Definitely some of the Ravagers have been softened up here. About 40 models missing on some of these units. Spear Host of the Girdle being brought forward for some early and cheap harass. They're going to be going after the Wretches, because why not? And the Thralls as well. The Thralls would actually be really easy to rout off at this point because they are exhausted and because their morale response is so poor. Anything could potentially send them fleeing for the hills. Now, this is interesting. Depending on how quickly they think they could move, if they wanted to deal with this threat behind them, it would be possible, I think, for both players to kind of cast a net, because there's really not many places for them to go here. Like, there's a box canyon behind them, so if they had the inclination, they could definitely cast a net about these Arqueni Findicano, maybe use some of their Elfin units as a little bit of bait to draw them into it, and then catch that unit and crush it, and that would be pretty decent for them. But it looks like instead they're going to move a little bit farther forward here. Alissan bringing forward his Iron Shot Arbalists. Let's see what the Doriath player does here. I think this is a great way to provoke aggression from the Doriath player, because nobody wants to just sit there and get shot by crossbows, and that is looking like exactly what's going to happen here. Sword Host, are they going to move forward, or are they trying to move backwards? I think it's a little bit late for them to move backwards, because those Iron Shot Arbalists are going to hit them regardless of what they do. So they, if you can get your shield bonus from the front, it is armor piercing, but I think that only halves the shield value rather than ignoring it entirely. Oh, yeah, those Sword Hosts taking it on the chin does hurt, and this is the sort of attrition tactics that Angband really needs to engage in if they want to win this fight. Rex is going to react with some of his Spear Host of the Girdle here, and that is going to push the Iron Shot Arbalists back just a little bit. And I think they'll probably manage to extricate themselves from that before the Spear Hosts are able to get in there with their Javies. Although, that being said, some arrow fire coming in here, probably from the Marksman of Barad Ithel, putting a little bit of pressure on the Iron Shot Arbalists, not letting them have it all their own way. And then the Spear Host of the Girdle are there as well. So it looks like Alissan has just said, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to tank the shots and turn around and pop up another volley here. Maybe at the Spear Host of the Girdle as they retreat. It wouldn't be the best use of their ammunition, but hey, you know what? Every little bit helps, I suppose, at this point. Take a look at the percentages there. About even. Minor bonus in favor of the Elven faction so far. Only about 1% difference, though. And those Arbalists looking like now they're going to retreat. They've had enough. They've popped up their final volley. The Spear Host being moved forward. They're a lot quicker on their feet, and their animation is about half as slow, I would say, as the Iron Shot Arbalists. So if it comes to a sort of slugfest, basically, of missiles, the Spear Hosts are actually going to come out on top there. Iron Shot Arbalists now being drawn back en masse, while another unit from Safi has been brought forward. A detachment here, and they are just peppering those Marksmen of Barad Ithel. Yeah, they are way too far forward. This is not at all where they want to be. Trading blows with a unit of Iron Shot Arbalists is just not an effective use of the limited numbers and ammunition of this higher end unit. That being said, looks like they're out of ammo now, so they've done about all the range damage they're going to be able to do, so I would probably bring them back, and if they want to shoot at something, there are probably some better options here. I think he's got some spearmen, maybe some of the Ferdsmen could be brought forward, but yeah, Marksmen of Barad Ithel. I suppose if they're out of ammunition, they're not all that important, so maybe this isn't the worst thing given the forces he has at his disposal here in the center. Over here, Balrogs, everyone kind of moving forward again. A lot of maneuvering takes place in these tournament games, and honestly, it doesn't necessarily make for the coolest, most action-packed tournament games. However, there is a lot of thought and strategy that goes into this, so I'm pretty pleased with that. It's nice to see that both sides are obviously very experienced, and they're putting a lot of thought into their movements and into their deployments, because like I said, it can turn around really, really quickly, especially when you're playing as Angband, where your morale is just so tenuous. So yeah, I can understand a little bit of hesitancy here on the part of the Angband players, and they want to fight that sort of ranged war of attrition for a little while. Now the Marksman of Barad Ithel, this is a pretty common tactic I found, is when people have they're sort of losing the skirmish fight, right? Just like throw something in there to sort of drive the enemy units back, and maybe even bring some other units forward so that you can potentially capitalize on that. That being said, doesn't appear to be the case here, as the rest of the Fingolfin army is just resting on its laurels at the bottom of that slight slope. But yeah, definitely don't want to push these guys too far forward. But that's a really nice tactic here, and this is one of the things you want to do when you're playing this sort of skirmish game, is try and layer your withdrawals. So, you know, move one, or like keep one unit stable and shooting for every 2 units that you move back, or do it as more of a 1-to-1 ratio, so that as you're retreating, you can, you know, turn a unit around, fire while your other units retreat. It's just sort of more of a fighting sort of retreat, and it's definitely a nice little counterplay to these sort of tactics where they just try to bull rush you, and then they end up bullying your entire skirmish line with, you know, just 1 or 2 units. There's a lot of Arbalists that was drawn back here. There's like 3, maybe 4 units of Arbalists that were pushed out of position by 2 units of Marksmen of Barad-Ithel, which their loss wouldn't really be the biggest deal for the House of Fingolfin, whereas losing the Ironshot Arbalists would obviously be a bigger deal for Angband, because that's a lot of killing power wrapped up in those missile units. Back here, most of the Orcish units now back on their feet in terms of fatigue, which is great for the Angband players. Cavalry still just hanging around in the back. Looks like some minor losses were incurred. Probably the hands of some of the missile units there. Yeah, that's about what it looks like. About 5 units there have been felled. Arquini Findicano. Oh, I am in a really bit of a ticklish position here, because I don't want to get in their way if they want to use this little corridor for access, so I need to be careful with where I am. And I'll try to stay out of the way in case the Arquini Findicano want to come through this pass here. In the back, Wretches of Angband, also some Thralls backing them up, so really there's not too many places where the Arquini Findicano can go, other than maybe into the center, and that's probably what I would be doing. A lot of the Arbalists are just kind of running back and forth, or they're like engaged in like a skirmish fight here over in the center against Doriath and the rest of the Fingolfin army. So this is an opportunity, I think, for most of these ranged units being busy to sort of just quickly swing back this way, pop a few shots off at the Udurloki, which looks like has probably happened already. But yeah, that's definitely how I would be spending my time here if I was the Fingolfin player. More of these units moving forward, more Arbalists. I think we need to see more of this sort of tiered deployment. So now they're bull rushing again. There's Balrogs in the way, and there's some Ironshot Arbalists here. So these are actually free to just be drawn back en masse while those Arbalists get into position, and then they can lay down some withering hails of bolt fire into these Marksmen of Barad-Ithel, because there's just so many of the Marksmen. There's really no reason to be drawing them all back at the same time. So yeah, Safi moving forward here, definitely the right move. And I would even spread these guys out a bit more, and then start to move a bit farther forward, or maybe start to focus a little bit on the Spear Host of the Girdle here. There's also, nope, just 2 units of Spear Host. They could be doing the same thing with their own Reavers, right? Like, there's no reason to just keep these units out front here. You could move in with the Reavers, you could, you know, peel off a unit of Ravagers, or a unit of Troll Guard, and the Troll Guard would make mincemeat of these little spearmen, and their non-armor piercing javelins would really just bounce off of their armor. That way he doesn't have to use any of his Arbalists. He can stop this kind of like silly dance that he's doing here. Ooh, Arbalist getting a little bit too close for comfort here. I think that their formation is too wide, and it's making that turn a little bit perilous as they skirt almost within spitting distance of those Spear Hosts of the Girdle, and they're going to capitalize on it. Rex definitely sees it, but they are moving, so not all of those are going to hit them. A few of the Arbalists will fall there, but really nothing that's all that big of a deal. And the skirmishing fight continues. So let's take a look at chat here, see if we've missed anything. Correct term should be gameplay focused versus looks focused. And what are we talking about here? Fantasy Total War sucks. This is why Rome Total War Remasters will be better than this. CA should return to developing legendary historical games. Down with fans crap. I mean, that's just silly. Third Age Reforged, or not Third Age Reforged, but Third Age 3.2. It's one of like the most played mods of basically all time. To say that it's crap is just, you're just silly. Let's see, what else am I missing here? The whole fantasy versus historical argument is flawed. Yeah, it is, but that's a discussion for another day. Let's see here. Arbalists warming up, and it looks like the marksmen are coming back here. Definitely want to bull rush these guys, and I think that these should stop and start shooting. And then the Arbalists here should try and move back. Yeah, they're going to get caught out because of how long those reload animations are. Let's see if they get the shots. No, if only they had just, like, you know, stayed the course and fired at these guys. I think a hail of bolts from the marksman followed by a charge from the Valoralkar would have probably been enough to actually see these guys off. The morale shock from that would have been pretty devastating. Let's see. These guys, there's nothing really too scary over here. It looks like we have some early engagements. Finally, Warriors of Region and some shield bearers charging in to the Troll Guard that are being used to pin them in place. Ironshot Ravager is going to get that brutal charge bonus off. And that is going to shred through a lot of these Doriath units. In return, the Axemen of the Girdle going to let the Ravagers know how they feel about that with a hail of throwing axes. And this is looking a little bit disorganized, but the Tyrian Lysdanen are being targeted here, and that, I think, makes a whole lot of sense. The Tyrian Lysdanen are not really capable of fighting the Troll Guard, not even on a good day, but this is a map where they're going to be getting like a -4 or so penalty, so that's yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Tyrian Lysdanen being brought down to about 4/5 of their strength and lost about 20% of the unit there. Scourges of Gothmog now being brought to bear as many of these missile units are busy or using their ammunition or focusing on other targets. Ironshot Ravagers, there's a big old blob of them here, but we could see them begin to rout off if these Axemen of the Girdle are allowed to fire freely. And even if they're not, yeah, they're out of ammunition now. They're just going to charge in here, and this could potentially rout off the Ravagers. Yeah, I think we might see that. That being said, if the Ravagers route in the right direction, we could see them come back later with about half strength, maybe. But yeah, some support needs to be brought in here for sure. There go the Ironshot Ravagers. That's a big old chunk of the standing forces that Morgoth has brought to bear here. Donathan Mablung being brought forward, and now the Troll Guard are being felled. This is turning out to be a really nice victory for the Doriath player here. And in the back, you can see cavalry coming in, Arquini Findicano running down the Ironshot Arbalists in tandem with the Mounted Company. Really great teamwork here. Now, the Thralls have something to say about it, and they're going to shoot at these cavalry, going to be hitting them from the rear, ignoring that shield bonus. But yeah, this is some really nice coordination here on the part of the Doriath players, and this is exactly what I was talking about the whole time. This sort of measured aggression and attacking one wing and just like overwhelming it, and that is exactly what they are poised to do, because there are no more reserves here. There's some wretches, there's some thralls, but these are things that cavalry and elven infantry are going to be able to cut through in relatively short order. There's not a whole lot left here. Yeah, they're really on the back foot. I think the only thing that they could do is maybe bring some of the Balrogs and some of the Udoloki to bear against this side. Now that the Arquini Findicano have run out of ammunition, that's basically all that they can do here, is to try and like staunch the bleeding and move in with as many of their monstrous units as they possibly can. Yeah, a little bit of perhaps a lack of coordination on the part of the Angband player here. That being said, they are reasonably well situated over on this side, but yeah, you can see Harumatar. Oh, some of the elite detachments, upgraded versions of the regular standard line infantry, going to charge into the Ironshot Ravagers, deny them that charge bonus. And looks like the same is going to happen over here. Hopefully Safi's able to get his ducks in a row on time, and it looks like he will be. So this unit is going to be able to charge into the Armitar, into all these other things here. And yeah, Herdsman of Hithlum piling in as well. The Ravagers are doing okay, but I think something extra is definitely needed here. And you can see more Troll Guard, more Ravagers kind of converging on this line here. They're going to try and like surround these Fingolfin units and crush them, but there are reserves for Fingolfin, which is great. We've got some Marines of Vinyamar here, Marksmen, and of course the Warriors of Region that Rex brought over here as well. Very well placed unit, and they're going to be right behind the Angband Army in just a matter of moments here. The only thing they can really do is like maybe use these Thralls here to try and pressure them, try and shut them down, and just make this less of a problem, but it's still going to continue to be a big issue. Over here in the center, the Angband players are just rushing to get themselves into a position where they can engage the Fingolfin line, so that's a fight that they can potentially win, especially with the Balrogs and the Udoloki present here. Some fire going down, raining from the sky, picking on the sentries of Hithlum, doing a number on them. That's exactly where they need to be and how they need to be used. Arrows and bolt fire pouring in as well, and they've already killed like a good 30 or so of the sentries and a whole bunch of think these are the Bladesmen. Yeah, those would be the standard line infantry. So now the Orcs are just crashing into them into the center. And if they can just overload this, they get enough critical mass in the center here. It might not matter as much that they're losing on the wings, but it really does come down to morale. And you can see these Iron-Shod Halberdiers beginning to run. Now this whole wing is going to be surrounded. Reavers of Anfauglieth have better morale response and better morale pools than the average Angband Iron-Shod unit. However, with all these scary things behind their line, Donovan LeBlanc, etc., even they will not be able to stand up to this. And this whole wing is just blown away. And I think that this is going to be the decisive moment in this game where they just run them over. Now, there are going to be other matches in here. This is not going to be the decisive game. This is, I think, going to be a real learning experience for the Angband players here, because I think that there was a sort of lack of coordination. This wing basically got attacked in isolation. There was no reserves available to help them, and then for the rest of the match, they're just kind of playing catch-up, and they're still trying to get in to the center fight, trying to win that at the very least, and then maybe they can sort of look at their options later. But over here, oh, well, this is actually pretty significant. So Marines of Vinyamar being committed. There's all the Balrogs over here. The whole goon squad has been brought to bear. But is it going to be enough? Iron-Shod Arbalists being brought over this way so they can try and just, like, lay down a withering hail of fire. This could be where Angband turns it around. That's a lot of Arbalists, and they're going to be squaring their sights on the Tyrion Lystanin and basically any Doriath unit that tries to enter into the fray. And meanwhile, there's a lot of blobbing here in the center. They managed to provoke the blobbing that they needed, and the Warriors of Region this is exactly where they didn't want to be, blobbed up and at the mercy of those Uruloki lobbing fire overhead. It's going to do a lot of damage. These Warriors of Region, there's just so much here that they're able to cook. Let's see what happens. Arconi Findicano, if they can just break through here, there's so much, like, mass being held up essentially by some Iron-Shod Halberdiers. These Arconi Findicano maybe could attack them from the rear, cause that mass route needed to start to roll up this Angband line, get into the Uruloki, push them out of position. Wretches being brought forward, just trying to staunch the bleeding. Tyrion Lystanin now disengaging, while some Axemen of the Girdle are going to be running sort of cover for them. Spearhost of the Girdle and some Axe Guard of Region. Fairly depleted unit of Axe Guard, about half strength. But that is going to be enough to allow the Tyrion Lystanin time to disengage. And now they're able to, Angband is at least able to sort of form up a line here against the Doriath units as they push from behind. Now, if they can hold it for a reasonable amount of time, give the crossbows the space that they need to deal damage, then, you know, maybe this can turn around. But I just don't see that happening. But let's see how things are going on the other wing. Where's a Region doing okay? Thralls here, very much in danger of being routed off by the marksmen. Let's see if we get another shot off on them. Well, the marksmen are actually reloading. I thought they were going to rush into melee with the Thralls. It probably would have been enough to rout them, so maybe that's the play here. Ravagers pushing forward. There's some warriors here. The Sons of Hurin. That's what's really making this decisive and keeping Fingolfin in the fight here is the Sons of Hurin engaging these Arbalists, but they are sort of outnumbered and surrounded, so they might not be able to fight their way out of that. Over in the center, Angband is, you know, they're right into the cookie jar, aren't they? Running through everything that stands in their way, and there's a mass rout on the horizon here, even with the Irimo Arantar, who have a particularly powerful melee or morale buff, trying to keep them in the fray, trying to keep cohesion, but Angband is just muscling through with trolls, with Balrogs, and with hordes upon hordes of unwashed masses of orcs. Essentially Hithlum here, very much in danger of routing off. They can just hold that center line long enough for Doriath to break through, then maybe this is gonna turn around. But if you look at the percentages here, yeah, it's starting to go in favor of Angband. I was thinking this would be a blowout for the Doriath player, and you know, maybe it still will be, but now that I see Angband starting to sort of pull it back and those numbers begin to take a toll, yeah, the Doriath player is now very much separated from his allies, so they're kind of like fighting two separate engagements here. And I think the combination of the numbers and the extra attack from the map is what's really making the big difference here. Yeah, the Arbalists. Well, a lot of these units are on the run. Axemen of the Girdle, I think, need to be brought very quickly behind these Angband lines. They want to focus on, like, creating a big, ugly rout here and just continuing to keep their momentum. They can't afford to be bogged down, even for a moment, Tyrion Lysdanen focusing on the Valoralkar. Might be able to kill this one off.
Captured the enemy's
nope, it's looking like no. Yeah, they need to quickly get in there and turn this around, because I think, yeah, the Tormentors of the Iron Crown, they could rout off here. And the Ironshot Arbalists being kept on the back foot here by the Spear Host. That's a really good move. Just continuing that pressure, continuing to keep as much of a threat behind the lines to keep these Arbalists from being a problem.
Only half the enemy force remains.
They're going to go after the Urloki. Probably not the best choice. Definitely want to cause a rout over here. I think this is the play. I want to go for these Ironshot Halberdiers. I can see them beginning to waver. Yeah, Doriath just needs to get in there. If they could kill off the Valoralkar, that would also be amazing, but they're very, very sturdy. Not an easy thing to take down. And over here, it looks like Angband has the critical mass needed to see them to victory here. Yep, sentries breaking every which way. Arqueni Findicano just aren't able to staunch the bleeding, and I think even if they manage to rout these units here, it's just not going to be enough. They just won't be able to get themselves into a coherent line and bring the necessary force to bear to deal with everything that's coming for them. So it looks like the game has kind of been won over on Safi's side, and a lot of that I think was due to the concentration of force of their elephant units working in tandem with the Troll Guard and things like that. But I don't think they're even going to get the chance to rout these guys off. I think what's going to happen here is they're going to get caught out and smashed while they try to deal with this blob. If only these shield bearers and things can just hold on. Just got to keep them busy, keep them... Yeah, Tormentors of the Iron Crown going down. Now it's going to be down to Doriath to like quickly reform here. If they can like sandwich this whole blob here in between whatever they have left, then that is going to be, I think, the way to see themselves to victory here. They can't get surrounded, and they can't... yeah, they can't get surrounded. They can't just like be blobbed up, because that's where the Valoralkar and the Urloki here to just kind of make quick work of them. Let's see what we got here. 74 to 69. It's still reasonably close. 5% difference. What we got over here? Spear Host of the Girdle about to rout off some of these Arbalists. That would be a welcome thing, I'm sure. Sons of Hurin, Lock Morale, dealing with the Arbalists as best as they're able, and some more reinforcements being brought in here. Yeah, see, this is the blob that Doriath wants to be able to like try and converge on. Oh, there's some Scourges in there as well. Yeah, I think that this is game over. I think there's just too much high-tier Angband stuff still remaining. A lot of the chaff has been ground out, but really that wasn't the killing power. It's just kind of there to get in the way and be irritating. Tyrion Lysdanen and see what they're going after. So the Balrog's there. Let's see, are they going to get another shot? It doesn't help that the Balrogs are just kind of diving into a crowd of their own soldiers. And it's really messing with their ability to target them. I think the better choice might be maybe some of these units over here, Reavers, that sort of thing. Where's Region? Oh, coming from behind, some cavalry support as well. Oh, this is just so desperate, but now some of the Arbalists and the Wretches are coming back. The Wretches are going to get in front of these guys. They're going to give the Arbalists the time that they need, and yeah, I think this is game over here. Well, maybe they can rout them. If they could just get a general, like if they could snipe an Angband general, I think that a lot of their army here would fall apart. Donathan Mablung, still 51. Oh, that's an ace in the hole. Going toe-to-toe with the Urloki. Great place for them to be. Looks like that Urloki actually just died. His animation for its death kind of bugged out there a little bit. Oh, this is an intense clash for sure. Oh, Tormentors of the Iron Crown. Looks like they came back from routing, and they're going to be able to charge headlong into the rear of these sentries of Hithlum. And that is basically going to take them out of the fight. They won't be combat effective after that. Spear Host of the Girdle moving in to try and block that, prevent it from happening. Maybe stop that charge bonus from going off, but the animation will trigger, and there you go. And at the same time, Trollguard going to come in. Really nice coordination here on the part of the Angband players. And they're going to smash into all that Doriath infantry, and this is a mess. This is a real mess. Some more halberds being brought in. There's some Scourges of Gothmog over here in the center. And this is where it seems like Angband is kind of in it to win it, where all the Balrogs and the Urloki and stuff are. Ooh, nasty shot there. Gonna take down some more of the Urloki from the Tyrion Lysdanen. It's gonna take down more and more of the Urloki. But the Balrogs, I think, have had enough of this. They've had enough of this game. And maybe they'll get one or more of the Urloki. But the Valoralkar, we're going to charge through them. Arqueni Findicano do have bonuses against elephants, but there's just not enough of them here to make a difference against those Balrogs. I think we're starting to see maybe some routing. on the Elven side. Yeah, these Sentries of Hithlum not having a great time here fighting against this Troll Guard. Oh man, it's just such a close game. 76 to 87, though. I think, barring a mass rout, Angband, I'm going to call it right now, Angband's got this. Spear Host now being surrounded. Yeah, this is game over. I don't think there's anything really left for them here. There's just so many of these elephant units. They have managed to deal quite admirably with a number of them. I'm not entirely sure what they used the Arquini Findicano ammunition on, but I think maybe the Balrogs probably should have been the target here. The Tyrion Lysthon are more than capable of dealing with the Urloki. They're a little bit of an easier target for them, whereas the Balrogs are a lot more slippery. So I think that the Arquini Findicano probably should have been used on them, because it's the Balrogs that are really winning this fight, right? The Dorniath players just surrounded on all sides here as the Halberdiers push in. Yeah, I think this is going to be game over here. I was running behind. Maybe that'll spook some of these tired units. No, I don't think so. What a mess. What a mess for both sides. 93% killed for the other team. Yep, this is definitely going to be going the way of Angband this time around. And that was a really good game. It looked like the Elves had kind of snatched victory from the jaws of defeat there, but Angband was able to kind of bring it home with their goon squad, and there was a little bit of blobbing there as well that the Urloki were able to take a lot of advantage of. And then once the center line, which is by far the weaker of the deployments, started to get crushed because of the failed assault on the Fingolfin and Doriath right wing, that was when it just started to be a problem. It was really a race from that point on, wasn't it? One team won on the right wing, and then the other team won on the opposite wing. And they're just basically racing to the finish line, and now here they are. And unfortunately for the red team, this is going to be a win for Angband. That being said, very well played to both sides. Super entertaining game to watch. And we're going to go on a little bit of a break here for a moment while we let the players set up the next lobby. So I'll see you guys in just a few moments. Hello everybody. So unfortunately, it turns out one of our players actually has to go to work. So we're going to have to postpone this until potentially Sunday. It's looking like Sunday works for most of the players, maybe. So I am going to put up a an announcement on the channel, like a little, save the date sort of thing, so that you guys can get a notification when we do start up again, hopefully on Sunday. That being said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. I think it's a nice little look at the nature of Silmarillion Total War and sort of the competitive sort of meta that we're trying to craft. Yeah, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. We will be picking this up again on Sunday, just to reiterate for a couple people who just joined, because one of our players actually has work in the next 10 minutes, and that was a pretty long-ass game. So, hope you guys have enjoyed the stream so far, and I will join you again on Sunday. We'll hopefully be able to finish this up and see who gets to take home the $150 prize pool. So, in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Hope you guys have enjoyed this so far, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.